The death by suicide of a 10-year-old Perth boy in state care has sent shockwaves around the country. The child had been removed from his parents around 2 years ago and hadn't seen them for 8 months, despite desperate efforts to be reunited. Gerry Georgatos is working with the boy's heartbroken family and joins us now. Gerry, thanks for your time. You saw the family this morning. How are they?
Devastated, distraught, as per every day, indescribable words for their loss. There's no words for their loss. It's unimaginable, or should be unimaginable, that one can lose a child at 10 years of age. And from all accounts and my extensive knowledge of child protection and family services, in terms of a custodial setting of child protection and all forms of out-of-home care, this is the youngest suicide or unnatural death in child protection.
Gerry, what was happening in the boy's life in the lead up to his death?
I can't speak with any authority on that. It's not all permissible. In the last 8 months, his family hadn't seen him, so there's no authorial narrative that I have. He was in the care of a family member, a 22-year-old cousin, after previously being in the care of his first cousin's mother, who's his auntie, his father's sister.
Gerry, why was he removed from his parents about 2 years ago, and why did the department intervene?
There was some substance misuse and there was some aberrant behaviour. They're a family of 6 children, so 4 of the children were removed, 2 of them weren't, they were the older ones. And one of them came back last year at 15 years of age. She insisted on coming back. The department actually relented and allowed her to come back. But the family should have had the children back a little bit earlier from what I actually see at this stage. They had been clean for a year. They passed all tests and analyses for substance misuse. And they should have been, the young one should have been in the care of the family. All the children should have been returned by now or allowed to return by now.
What were the efforts to return the children to their family? How many meetings would have taken place between them and the department?
I can't speak with any real authority. I'm on the safety plan now with a colleague from here onwards for the youngest child, who's actually younger than the deceased. And we're going to try and reunify that child with the family. One child did return last year, but the efforts don't appear that there was a progress towards reunification. There was a suggestion of it, but in the last year where they've been clean, everything had been done for all protective factors to be in place for a child to be returned. It's usual practice that they return much earlier than the year when you've got that sort of clean slate. But that didn't actually happen. So the one that did come back came back because of her own initiative and insisting that she would run away or be transient if she wasn't allowed to return to her family. Reunification will now happen with greater exercise that I and my colleague Megan Cracker will be on the safety plan. We'll work towards that end.
Gerry, this young boy was in the care of a 22-year-old cousin. Did the department facilitate any contact with the parents during the 2 years that he was in state care?
I can't talk too much about the cousin and the carer. I've got a feel for her too because she's a cousin and she's lost her cousin and in her care. I find it very strange that she didn't have a previous foster care history, unlike her mother, and that she was burdened with bringing up two first cousins that weren't too many years apart from her. So I feel for her loss too, and I've got to take that into account. But the power imbalance is always with child protection. Even if the family had become estranged, if that's the case with the father's sister and niece, and facilitation of visits weren't occurring, the Department of Child Protection has a power imbalance that they could facilitate any meeting, any visitation at any time. So they've got questions to actually ask or be raised with. And I hope it's not left to languish till it's a coronial inquest.
Gerry, what sort of measures had the parents taken to get their children back?
They cleaned up from substance misuse. They'd stabilised their tenancy. They were supporting their older children. The older children both work, one in a hospital and another one in a hospitality circumstance. other child I described came back last year as a minor, 15 years of age of her own will, and that's because there was life transformation. So they've made every move to take away the aberrant behaviour that impacted on the perception of their nurture. And what I often see happen, and I'm sometimes critical of some aspects of child protection and family services, and what we need is families to be supported intensively. And that intense psychosocial and psychoeducative support just doesn't happen. The outreach just doesn't happen. And family services and child protection are $7 billion in funding across the nation, $1 billion in Western Australia. Less than 20% is spent on families.
Gerry, what does forced disconnection from parents do to a child's mental health?
That's the imperative question, Narelda. Whether it's a First Nations child or a non-First Nations child in care, when they're removed from their families and visitations aren't actually allowed or facilitated, where families aren't supported to see their children and children to see their families, identity becomes a liability. That's disconnection. And that has situational trauma, compounding trauma, and it becomes cumulative. And we're tearing families apart by doing so. And the longer we take to reunify families, and the longer we keep families apart as a whole, the more damage we do, often irreparable.
Gerry, there are children in care in other states and territories who have suicided. This isn't specific to Western Australia. Minister for Indigenous Australians Linda Burney says this demands deep reflection. What do you think needs to happen here?
It demands more than deep reflection. I have a lot of respect for Linda Burney, but this is people's lives, and this is families, and this is children that grow on to adults with aberrant behaviour. We take away children from families that finish up in residential care in hovels of human misery instead of a facilitated nurture. We don't put them in one-on-one placements or in familial settings or carer settings that they're there for a long tenure, their whole of childhood, if we take them away from. A significant proportion finish up in multiple placements, 50, 60, 70, 80 placements. A significant proportion finish up in residential care and multiple foster care. If we can't take care of them, or the state can't take care of them, it shouldn't be taking them away from families. They should be focusing in on supporting the families to support these young children to get them through their troubled times. I've been on more than 100 safety plans in Western Australia and also across the country, and I've seen a lot that's remiss. I see a lot of good work that happens, and I see a lot of work that doesn't happen, and what we need is a public register of accountability.
Gerry, in the final few moments that I've got you, if this young boy was with his parents, would he still be alive?
If he's with, that's a given. If he had been returned or given the ability to return months ago or a year ago or 6 months into the clean slate of the family, which is the usual setting or circumstance, he would still be with us today. I'm very sure of that. The family's very sure of that. And there's a lot of anger and displaced anger at that fact.
Thank you very much, Gerry Georgatos. Appreciate your time.